Welcome to the lecture series on basic thermodynamics. This is module 2 in that part 2, first law of thermodynamics, and lecture number 7. Myself Dr. N. Satish Kumar, Associate Professor of Mechanical Engineering, Canara Engineering College. Now let us study the Joule's experiment first. So Joule has conducted a number of experiments to find out the work equivalent of heat. So for that, so what he has done is he has taken a insulated container containing some liquid in that, and using a paddle wheel, so he done some stirring work on this system. Now the liquid inside the container is considered the system, and he measured the work transferred onto the system by means of this weight attached here, right? So you can see here the weight attached. Okay, so this is the weight. So you can easily find out to work, because when this paddle wheel rotates, so this paddle wheel is connected to a pulley, and through that it is connected to this weight. So whether can be, weight can be either lowered or raised. So by knowing the height to which it is lowered or raised, so you can find out the work as mgh or mgz. Suppose that the z is the height to which it is lowered or raised. Now after transferring a known quantity of work onto the system, so he found there is an increase in temperature of the substance. So then what he did is he transferred this liquid to some other container and brought it in contact with the water bath. Okay, so he allowed the heat to transfer from the system, that is a liquid in the container, to the water bath till it attains its original temperature. So temperature has to be come back to its initial state. So that is an indication that the system has come back to its initial state. And he found out he calculated the amount of heat transferred to the water bath, and he found that whatever the work transferred onto the system and the heat transferred to the water bath, they are found to be equal when expressed in the same unit. That means from 1 to 2, you see this is the work initially from state 1 in the property diagram. So 1 to 2 is the work transferred onto the system. So how did he measure that? How did he measure that? So by knowing the this displacement of this weight, either it is lowered or raised. Okay, now so mgz is the work transferred into the system, and it led to the increase in temperature of the substance. So if you want to know what is the amount of heat that is transferred to the substance, for that he removed that heat from the substance by dipping or by transferring this heat to a water bath, and he found that when the substance is brought back to the state 1 through this path along this 2 to 1, so he measured this Q2 to 1. Earlier he found out W1 to 2, and he found that these two quantities are equal in magnitude. And this he repeated for different quantities of the substance for different temperatures, different work inputs, and for all these experiments, so he found that the work is equivalent of heat, means they both are in the same magnitude. Okay, so it is a Joule's experiment. Now the statement of the first law of thermodynamics. Statement: during a cycle, a system undergoes the cyclic integral of heat added is equal to the cyclic integral of work done. So the condition is here the system should undergo a cycle. So all of you know what is a cycle. Cycle means the system should come back to its initial state. So that is what even the Joule has done in his previous experiment. So every time, so after doing some external work, paddle wheel work on the system, and making its temperature to rise, so once again he removed that heat and brought the system back to its initial state. So that means it is completes one cycle. So here also the statement says only for a cycle, okay, the heat added is equal to the work done. That means cyclic integral of heat is equal to cyclic integral of work. So mathematically you can express it like this. Cyclic integral of dq is equal to cyclic integral of dw. The first law is applicable to a closed system and to a thermodynamic cycle and not to a process. Very, very important. So this is applicable to a closed system. So you cannot apply to a open system, and also to a cycle, not a process. So in SI units, both heat and works are expressed in same units. So therefore it is not necessary to multiply it by any multiplication factor. Okay. So directly you can write cyclic integral of dq is equal to cyclic integral of dw. Now first law, for a closed system undergoing a change of state. So for a closed system during a cyclic process, the sum of work transferred is equal to the sum of heat transferred. So this is for a cyclic process. Okay. Cyclic integral of dq is equal to cyclic integral of dw. So for a closed system during non-cyclic process, if the process is not cyclic, that means if the system doesn't, or and surroundings, if doesn't come back to its initial state, so in that case the work transferred, you see, the work transferred and the heat transferred may not be equal, and this difference is always accounted by the change in internal energy or simply energy of the system. So usually for a cyclic process, all of you know, the cyclic integral of dq should be equal to cyclic integral of dw, whereas for a non-cyclic process, so these two quantities are not equal. That means q is not equal to w. So what is the difference? The difference amount is either stored in the form of simple energy or internal energy, or maybe consumed in the form of internal energy. So here the all the three, that is heat, work and delta E, should be expressed in the same units, that is joules. Okay, now let us study or prove energy a property of the system. You can call it as internal energy, or simply you can call it as energy, and you have to prove that it is a property. Property means what? The change of this value during a change of state should be independent of the path. That means the change in property value of that, change in value of that property for a change of state should be independent of path. Now give the example of pressure volume here in this diagram. If you take an example of pressure and volume, so here pressure is P1 and here pressure is P2. So if I move along path 1A2, so the pressure change is P2 minus P1. If I go along 1B2, then also P2 minus P1. 1C2, then also it is P2 minus P1. Means it is independent of the path. So any thermodynamic quantity whose value is independent of the path, or if it doesn't depend on the path, so then it is called as the property. Means here it depends on the end points, not on the path followed. So similarly, so you have to prove the energy as a property of the system. For that, let us consider a process, change of state 1A2, means change of state 1 to 2 along the path 1A2. That is better. Okay. So 1A2 is one forward process. 1A2 is a forward change of state from 1 to 2, and the return process is along two lines. There is two paths, 2B1, okay, and 2C1, 2B1 and 2C1. Now for this path 2B1 and 2C1, you have to prove that the energy change is same. Okay, so let us start this derivation in the next slide. Okay, now let us take the path A. So for path A, if I apply the first law of thermodynamics, so you know the first law of thermodynamics, Q is equal to delta E plus W. So let me use the word suffix A, okay, to represent that particular path. Okay, so process is between state 1 and 2, but there are two different paths: forward path 1A2, return path 2B1 and 2C1. So suffix ABC is used to indicate the path. So for the path A, QA is equal to delta EA plus WA, and for path B, QB is equal to delta EB plus WB. Now process A and B together, because 1A2 is in the forward direction, 2B1 is in the reverse direction, so it constitutes a complete cycle. So delta W cycle is equal to delta sorry, cyclic integral of, or sigma w cycle is equal to sigma q cycle, or cyclic integral of dw is equal to cyclic integral of dq. That also you can write. Okay, it's not delta, it's sigma. Okay, so that means the summation of w should be equal to summation of dq for this entire cycle. That means from this you can write WA plus WB, that is summation of work, is nothing but for the two process it is WA plus WB, and the heat transfer during the two processes is QA plus QB. So if you simplify this, you will get QA minus WA is equal to WB minus QB. Now from this expression 1, QA minus WA, so WA if it is taken to the other side, so it becomes delta EA, whereas WB minus QB, so WB here, QB has to be brought to this side, so then delta E goes to the other side, so it becomes minus, so you will get these two expressions, right? So this becomes minus delta EB, so you will get delta EA is equal to minus delta EB. That means this term QA minus WA is delta EA, whereas WB minus QB is minus delta EB. So this is first step in proving this energy as a property. Now this is we applied for the cyclic process 1A to B1. Now you have to do it for the 1A to C1. You have to go back along path C. So that if you do that and if you try that, you will get delta EA is equal to minus delta EC. Okay, and from this equation 5 and 6, so you can see that delta E for path B is equal to delta E for path C. So from this it is very clear that the change in internal energy or change in energy during the process 2B1 and during the process 2C1 are equal. That means it is independent of the path B and C. So its quantity are equal. Okay, so here for simplification, before you write this for path A and path B, you can take the cycle as 1A to B1 as the cycle. Then you can write this path A, path B. So here this, before you prove this, delta EA is equal to minus delta EC. So you have to consider path 1A. So forward path is same, 2, final point is same, but return is in different path, to C and back to 1. So even you can consider it as the cyclic cycle 1A to B1 and 1A to C1 also you can write down, no issues. Okay. Now modes of energy. So basically there are two modes of energy. One is called as macroscopic energy mode and one is called as the microscopic energy mode. So in case of macroscopic mode, so we are not considering the molecules or the finest particles. Instead we consider this as whole packet of mass. You see a group of substance, a bunch of substance, so you consider it as a packet of mass and moving with certain velocity, and its center of gravity is at certain height, so which gives the kinetic energy as well as the potential energy of the that mass packet. Suppose if you are going for microscopic energy mode, so then you have to consider each and every individual molecules within that packet. So it consists of n number of molecules, and for each molecule, so you have to find out its velocity and its height from the reference point, and independently, so you have to find out its kinetic energy, potential energy, along with other energy terms also. So the macroscopic energy mode includes macroscopic kinetic energy and potential energy. Suppose if you consider fluid element, okay, that packet what I used is a fluid element having mass m, center of mass velocity is v, and macroscopic energy, kinetic energy is Ek. Then Ek is equal to half mv square. So that is what for a fluid element of mass m in macroscopic approach. Similarly, if that element, fluid element, is at a elevation z from a arbitrary reference point, so then its macroscopic potential energy is given by mgz. So this is what I told you when you consider it as a macroscopic energy. Okay, the microscopic energy refers to the energy stored in the molecular and atomic structure of the system, which is called as molecular internal energy or simply internal energy, and it is denoted by the symbol U. So this is molecular energy. Okay. Now this molecular energy can be in the form of translational energy, kinetic energy, rotational kinetic energy, vibration energy, then nuclear binding energy, and electron energy. So these are the various components of the microscopic energy or the internal energy stored in a molecule. So matter is composed of molecules. Molecules are random in thermal motion with an average velocity v, constantly colliding with one another and with the walls. Due to collision, the molecules may be subjected to rotation as well as the vibration. So they can have translational, kinetic, rotational, vibrational, electronic, chemical and nuclear energy. And if you want the total energy of one molecule, so then for that particular molecule, so you have to add all these energy components. That's epsilon is equal to epsilon translational, epsilon rotational, epsilon vibrational, epsilon chemical, epsilon electronic and epsilon nuclear. So suppose if n is the total number of molecules in the system, so this is the energy possessed by one molecule due to various components, energy components. Okay, so total energy for n molecule U will be n into epsilon. So if an ideal gas, in an ideal gas, so there are no intermolecular forces of attraction and repulsion, and internal energy depends only on temperature. So for an ideal gas, the internal energy is purely a function of temperature, in the sense with increase in temperature the internal energy increases, and with the decrease in temperature the internal energy decreases. So for an ideal gas, let us find out the total energy. So other forms of energy which can be possessed by a system are magnetic energy, electrical energy, surface tension energy, and in the absence of these forms the total energy is given by this expression. E is equal to kinetic energy plus potential energy plus U, that is the internal energy. So where Ek, Ep and U refer to the kinetic, potential and internal energy respectively. So in the absence of the motion, suppose if there is no movement, then kinetic energy becomes 0, and in the absence of gravity, this potential energy also becomes 0. So in that case, the total energy of the system is equal to the internal energy. So therefore we can write Q is equal to delta U plus W, because here delta U is equal to delta E is equal to delta U. The original equation was delta E. So now since E is equal to U for this special case, so you can write it as delta U. So where U is an extensive property of the system, and the specific internal energy U, because all specific quantities, as you know, it is intensive property because it is independent of the mass, where extensive property means you have to sum up for the entire system, the values for the individual parts of the system should be summed up. So that is extensive property. Okay, now writing the above expression in the differential form, that means you have to write it as dq is equal to dE plus dW, that is the first equation, and second equation you have to write it as dq is equal to du plus dW. Now as we studied in the first part of this module, dW, that is the work, net work done, okay, on a system, is the sum of all the work interactions between the system and the surroundings. So the different forms of work interactions may be the displacement work or the PdV work, maybe the shaft work, maybe the electrical work, so and many other forms of work interactions. So that we did in the first part. So whenever there are more than one work interaction involved with between the system and the surroundings, so we calculated the net work done by summing of the all work interactions. So that is what the expression dW. Okay. Now in the absence of other forms and considering only the PdV work, suppose if only the PdV work is there, so in that case this dW you have to replace it by PD. And if you want to have the absolute value of the heat transfer, so then you have to integrate this and you will get the two equations as Q is equal to delta E plus integration of PdV and Q is equal to delta U plus integration of PdV. Okay, this is the the first lecture of the part 2, and I'll continue with the lecture number 8, the further topics of the this module 2. Thank you.